In the tranquil suburbs of Ontario, where families flourish and harmony reigns, a disturbing story lurked beneath the surface. This was the world of Paul Bernardo and Karla Homolka, a couple who, to the unknowing eye, blended seamlessly into the tapestry of suburban life. Their home, nestled among rows of picturesque houses, was a stark contrast to the dark secret it concealed. To their neighbors, Paul and Karla were just another young couple living the Canadian dream. But behind the smiles and everyday normality, they harbored a chilling secret that would soon send shockwaves across the nation.
The level of evilness with both these people is so extreme. These people were animals.
As dawn breaks over this peaceful community, we delve into a narrative that intertwines the facade of an ordinary life with the extraordinary and sinister reality of the Ken and Barbie killers. It's a journey that will challenge our perceptions of what lies beneath the surface of suburban normalcy.
The idea that these were the bad guys, that they were capable of doing anything so vile, is something that's hard for us to comprehend.
She assaulted her sister. It was absolutely mind-boggling. It's the most sensational and probably one of the most sinister cases in Canadian history.
Paul Bernardo, born into the semblance of a typical middle-class family, carried a facade that concealed his turbulent inner world. His childhood, marked by a dark family secret, was a stark contrast to the smiling, affable boy his neighbors knew. But it was a revelation in his teenage years, the truth about his birth, that marked a turning point, igniting a shift in his demeanor and setting a course toward a much darker path. Karla Homolka, the eldest daughter in a seemingly well-adjusted family, presented a life filled with normalcy and promise. Known for her intelligence and charm, she was a figure well-liked in her community, her fondness for animals leading her to a career in veterinary medicine. Yet beneath this ordinary exterior, there was a complexity and depth, elements of her personality that would later converge with Bernardo's in a devastating union. Their paths crossed in 1987, Paul at the age of 23 and Karla, just 17. It was a connection that sparked immediately, a relationship that seemed typical at first glance, but was fueled by a shared and deeply disturbing fascination. As they grew closer, their bond deepened into a dark symbiosis, laying the groundwork for the heinous acts that would follow.
She was only 17, she was rather young, and Bernardo provided something for her that she was lacking. He came across as a strong individual, in control.
As the relationship between Paul and Karla deepened, so did their descent into a disturbing world far removed from the apparent normalcy of their suburban lives. Paul, with his dark past as the Scarborough rapist.
The sexual assaults were the most brutal that I'd ever seen in my career at that time, and I served for 31 years on the Toronto Police Service.
Found not just a partner in Karla, but a willing accomplice. Their bond, twisted by shared dark fantasies, began to manifest in reality, blurring the lines between desire and deviance. The descent of Paul and Karla into a realm of unspeakable acts began with a heart-wrenching betrayal within Karla's own family. Their first joint criminal act involved Karla's younger sister, Tammy Homolka. In an act that defied all bounds of familial trust and morality, they carried out a sinister plan against the unsuspecting 15-year-old. During a family Christmas gathering, under the guise of celebration, they executed their heinous plot. Karla, exploiting her knowledge from her job at a veterinary clinic, procured sedatives. That night, they drugged Tammy's eggnog, rendering her unconscious. In the quiet of the family home, with the rest of the household asleep, they carried out their assault on Tammy, recording their vile actions on video. The tragedy escalated when Tammy, still under the influence of the drugs, began to vomit and choke. In a panic, Paul and Karla attempted to cover up their actions. They cleaned and redressed Tammy, placing her in her bed to make it appear as though she had passed away in her sleep from accidental causes. Their efforts to disguise the true nature of the incident succeeded, and Tammy's death was tragically misinterpreted as an accidental choking incident.
The family was all gathered and everybody went to bed except the three of them. They had Tammy drinking, got her drunk, and as she passed out, They basically raped her in every possible way. Tammy vomited and suffocated.
They turned her upside down because Homolka knew that from when she worked in the veterinary's office, but she actually died.
The callous act against Tammy Homolka was only the beginning of a series of escalating horrors committed by Paul and Karla. Indeed, the case of Leslie Mahaffey stands as a particularly harrowing chapter. The 14-year-old girl's fate was sealed when she tragically crossed paths with the couple. Abducted and taken to their home, Leslie was subjected to a horrifying ordeal, a grim echo of their previous crimes. Paul and Karla, emboldened by their past actions and driven by a perverse compulsion, recorded their atrocious acts, creating a dark and undeniable testament to their cruelty. As the nightmarish scenario unfolded, the couple made a calculated and heinous decision to end Leslie's life, aiming to erase any trace of their actions.
He was obsessed with making himself into a star. It was very important for him to keep trophies or mementos that would confirm how successful he had been on these occasions.
In a chilling display of cold-bloodedness, they took steps to dispose of the evidence. Their method was as gruesome as it was methodical. They ended Leslie's life and then sought to hide their crime by dismembering her body. To further conceal their atrocity, they encased the remains in cement and disposed of them in the serene setting of Lake Gibson. This act, intended to bury their secret forever, ironically became a critical clue in unraveling their series of crimes. The couple's next act of brutality occurred with the abduction of Kristen French, a 15-year-old girl. Kirsten's story began on an ordinary day in April 1992, when her path fatefully intersected with Paul and Karla. The 15-year-old girl was approached by the couple in a parking lot, lured under the guise of needing directions. In a moment of chilling premeditation, Paul and Karla abducted Kristen, a terrifying echo of their previous abduction. Once taken to their home, Kristen endured a nightmare beyond comprehension. Over several days, she was subjected to horrific acts, her ordeal meticulously documented by Paul and Karla. In a disturbing pattern, they continued to record their crimes, amassing evidence of their unspeakable acts. The decision to end Kristen's life was a calculated one, born from a desire to leave no witnesses to their crimes. In an act of cold-blooded brutality, they ended her life. The manner in which they did so was as heartless as it was methodical, reflecting the depth of their depravity. In a final act of callous disregard, Paul and Karla disposed of Kristen's body in a way that was both brazen and reckless. Her body was left in a ditch along a rural road, a location where it would inevitably be found. The discovery of Kristen's body, partially shaved and left in such a public manner, added a new level of horror to the already gruesome series of events.
By the time Kristen French's naked, shorn body was discovered in a ditch in Burlington, everybody was on high alert.
The placement of Kristen's body not only signified another tragic loss, but also marked a turning point in the investigation. The authorities, piecing together the grim pattern of abductions and murders, began closing in on the truth. The community, horrified by the discovery and the realization of the evil in their midst, awaited justice for the unfathomable crimes that had shattered their sense of security. The authorities, connecting the dots between the cases of Leslie Mahaffey, Kristen French, and the earlier crimes, started to focus their attention on Paul and Karla.
It was a pretty awful thing to be part of, in the sense to see that level of pain and anguish and despair at unspeakable levels. It is not something that any human being should ever endure, and I'm talking about Kristen French and Leslie Mahaffey. I mean, it's that disturbing.
The couple, once perceived as ordinary and unassuming, became the center of a probe into the depths of human depravity. The turning point came with the discovery of video recordings made by Paul and Karla. These tapes, a horrifying catalog of their crimes, shattered any remaining illusions of their innocence. The evidence was irrefutable, laying bare the extent of their involvement in the abductions and murders. Faced with mounting evidence, the facade that Paul and Karla had so carefully constructed began to crumble. The couple, once adept at maintaining a veneer of normalcy, could no longer hide the monstrous reality of their actions. The community, which had once viewed them as just another suburban couple, now saw them for what they truly were, perpetrators of some of the most heinous crimes the country had ever seen.
Nature versus nurture is a puzzling question in the case of Paul Bernardo and Karla Homolka. Karla Homolka apparently had a really nice suburban childhood. Oldest of 3 children, pretty popular, had a little bit of the dark teenage years, but nothing unusual. And then becomes, if not the driving force behind sexual torture and murder, certainly a partner in crime, to despicable crimes, planned crimes. Paul Bernardo, on the other hand, has been described as probably mentally unwell from his early childhood. Now, of course, psychopathy can develop from a bad childhood, and we know that Bernardo was not treated well, that he was told at a very susceptible period that he was illegitimate.
As the case against them solidified, Paul and Karla's paths diverged. Karla, in a bid to save herself, struck a deal with the authorities. She portrayed herself as a victim of Paul's manipulation, offering her cooperation in exchange for a reduced sentence. This plea bargain, though controversial, provided critical testimony that helped to seal Paul's fate.
I want to do everything I can for you to put that bastard away forever. He doesn't even deserve to live, but I want him to rot in jail because dying's too good for him.
Paul Bernardo, facing a mountain of evidence, was ultimately convicted of his heinous crimes. The trial, a media sensation, captivated and horrified the nation. The final verdict brought some measure of closure to the families of the victims and the community at large, but the scars left by the Ken and Barbie killers would linger long after the courtroom doors closed.
He used Homolka for his own needs, and Homolka fed off Bernardo to satisfy her own needs. It was a symbiotic relationship. How these things developed is probably a combination of internal and environmental factors, but in my judgment, and the judgment of most people who have studied this in a serious way, that there's a significant neurobiological component to this, whether it's hormonal, genetic, electrical, chemical, exacerbated by a head injury, and plus psychosocial factors. There's a lot of things have to go wrong, which makes these crimes extraordinary.
With the trials concluded and the verdicts delivered, the community sought to find a sense of closure, yet the shadows cast by Paul Bernardo and Karla Homolka's actions lingered. The case had not only gripped the nation with its sheer brutality, but it also ignited a broader discussion about justice, manipulation, and the nature of evil. Karla Homolka, having secured a controversial plea bargain, served her time and was eventually released. This outcome sparked a widespread debate on the legal system's handling of her role in the crimes. Many felt that justice had been only partially served, with Karla's portrayal as a victim under scrutiny. Her release into society was met with unease and outrage, a testament to the lasting impact of her actions.
It suddenly dawned on us how big this case was and how brutal and how awful and how psychologically twisted this case was.
Paul Bernardo, sentenced to life in prison, remained a symbol of pure evil in the public consciousness. The extent of his crimes, laid bare during the trials, left an indelible mark on the community and the country. His incarceration offered a grim reminder of the horrors that had unfolded and the lives irreparably damaged. In the wake of the trials, the families of the victims and the community grappled with their grief and the daunting task of moving forward. The loss of Leslie Mahaffey, Kristen French, and Tammy Homolka left a void that could never be filled. Memorials and tributes poured in, serving as a poignant reminder of the young lives tragically cut short.
There never was before and never was since such a string of attacks like that.
People were scared stiff for a very long time.
The story of the Ken and Barbie killers also left an indelible mark on popular culture. Documentarians, authors, and filmmakers explored the case from various angles, each endeavoring to unravel the enigma of Paul and Karla's partnership and their descent into infamy. These explorations often sought to understand not just the how, but the why, the deeper motivations and societal factors that could lead seemingly ordinary individuals to commit such extraordinary crimes. As the years turned into decades, the legacy of this case continued to evoke a mix of fascination, horror, and introspection. For those who lived through it, the story of Paul Bernardo and Karla Homolka remains a haunting reminder of the fragility of normalcy and the potential for darkness lurking beneath the surface of everyday life. The Ken and Barbie Killers case stands as a stark lesson in vigilance, empathy, and the pursuit of justice. It reminds us of the importance of looking beyond appearances, of understanding the complexities of human behavior, and of the need for a justice system that adequately reflects the severity of such crimes.
Hear no justice, see no justice, speak no justice. The law's an ass.
All we need to know is that justice is served. We don't need to know what the girls went through.
As this chapter in Canadian criminal history fades into the past, its echoes continue to resonate, shaping conversations and understandings about crime, punishment, and human nature for generations to come.